Okay, just the way I'd like to try to make this work is I have some questions for Cliff, which we'll dive into. If I'd like to like make the best use of Cliff's time to so like we try to keep it on like the questions that we have already kind of gone over, but I also want to make it interactive. So if you have like questions as the conversation goes on, please weigh in the chat. I have asked Jason to help us out by monitoring the chat room and like and then um,
Keep it
one
moving.
more. Yeah, and then like I'll pause periodically and just try to get those. So with that out of the way, uh, Cliff, thanks so much for making the time, man. I really appreciate it. It's awesome. We're going New Hampshire to Hawaii here. This is fantastic.
My
And
pleasure.
yeah, awesome. And thank you so much to everybody for coming in on this. And I think I wanted to start, Cliff, if you don't mind, with kind of your origin story. I think a lot of us are familiar with the work that you're doing, like through your Facebook and YouTube channel and your website. But I'd like to hear like where it all started, if you don't mind.
Sure. That's as good a spot as any. I'm actually third generation loggers. My family was all Oregon lumberjacks. My grandpa was a logger. My dad grew up on the logging camp. We got family in Oregon, family in Ketchikan, logging up there. And my dad ended up working the railroad up in Skagway, Alaska. It's a little tourist town. It's the 10-pound town in a 5-pound bag. It's got 700 or 800 people that live there and about 5,000 tourists a year run through. So I ended up working in the food and food and tourist industry at a really early age. An unscrupulous manager of a hotel. We got jobs when we were 12 years old, bussing tables and working in restaurants and hustling. And that was my first exposure to commercial kitchens, working in this. It's funny because it's come full circle. 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, I was prep cooking in the kitchen. I had dishwashed in the kitchen, the main kitchen. I learned how to prep cook. By 16, I was managing drive-ins and working kitchens and using cutlery. At an early age, the grandpa that was the logger, he gave me my first pocket knife. It was a little a little old timer. And he showed me how to sharpen it on the little stone. And he had that thing where it would just pop hair right off your arm. And he taught me how to make a whistle out of a willow stick or something. I can't remember what the stick was, but he showed me how you could whittle with this little pocket knife. And I've always had, of course, growing up there, we always had buck knives. All of us had buck knives and we were doing things with them you shouldn't do with a buck knife. We all wanted to stick it in a tree or stick it in our friend's foot or get it as close to our friend's foot as we could get it. And so, growing up in Alaska, knives and just, it was all just part of, I never even thought about it. Went to high school. In high school, I got a job working for a woodworker, making redwood tables and carving wooden signs. Like they sandblast a lot of them, but I was the router guy and he was the finished carver guy. And that's where I really started getting cut. I stuck a gouge in my thumb once. I jabbed that gouge and it just stuck right in there. And you end up getting cut and sliced enough, you get better at not getting cut and sliced. But he didn't know. But the funny thing is, now we're sharpening woodworking tools, gouges and carving knives and things like that. And this guy couldn't sharpen a thing to save his life. And, he tried to show me how, and we'd end up just going to the store and just buying a brand new gouge. He bought a lot of gouges because he couldn't sharpen them. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, 18, 19. And I went off and so I've got a background in restaurants, background in wood carving, and using hand tools. And then I went and got this electronics degree and specialized in robotics. And they said, congratulations, you get to go to Detroit, Michigan and work in the automobile manufacturing industry, fixing the big robots that are in the auto industry. And I didn't want to do that. Country kid and all that, small town guy. So I moved here and ended up here. Long story short, it was spring break. I was 22 and everyone was running around here, you know, in bikinis. And I thought this is a good spot. I'd come down from Fairbanks, Alaska, where my dad was, and it was 40 below and 10 foot of snow. When I got here, I said, I'm done. There's, it was a good move. And I took my electronics repair background. I started fixing things, and that's what I've done here for the last 30 years, basically. Before I got into the hobby of sharpening, I was an electromechanical repairman, and I fixed computers, copiers, fax machines, telephones, answering machines, everything with a thing with screws in it that you can take apart. I was taking it apart and putting it back together. And I picked up the hobby. Actually, a buddy of mine, getting older, and a buddy of mine is into knife collecting, and he's got some really nice collections. He's got a mortgage to a house, in his dresser drawers. And I said, man, my wife will kill me if I do that. And he said, well, I've got a Wicked Edge. Do you want to, I said, well, I'll buy it. I knew what they were. I had an uncle that was my grandpa's, my dad's brother. And he'd gotten bit by the sharpening bug, and he told me about the Wicked Edge. And I was watching the different videos like we all do. This was back in 2015. And so I learned about the Wicked Edge, and I thought, God, that thing looks cool. And it really appealed to my technical nature, the precision of it. And so I ended up getting the Wicked Edge from the guy, and just ate it up. And, talking about when you go, I don't know if you get the right thing at the right time. You guys know as well as I do, you get bit by the bug, and it just, the more you learn, the more you want to learn, and the more fun you're having. And I mean, I took that Wicked Edge, and the guys on the other thing that really, there's the appeal to finding something you really like to do, but then finding a group of people to do it with. Mm-hmm. The guys on the Wicked Edge forum are an amazing group, and they're not the only ones by any chance, but they were absolutely talking a whole nother language, degrees DPS and degrees per side, and edge leading and edge trailing and pressure, and all, just this whole world opened up of new things to learn. And it was easy to get results at the shallow end of the pool. And then it just kept going. You take your stones and you apex it, and then you remove the burr, and then you check that edge, and you go, holy shit, I just made a razor blade. Mm-hmm. And that's just with a 1,000 grit stone, just this paddle. And I was fascinated by the fact that the thing was so precise that you could get this 1/10 of a degree, and you could just go all the way down. I'm ordering lapping films off of eBay, and I got the multiple strops and 0.1 micron, and then you get the USB microscope, and you're trying to split the hair, and it's just that's why we're here, right? It's the funnest thing in the world to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's I did that all from you call it what it is. It's a broom closet. We have a storage room with some shelves, and I cut out one of the shelves, so I had upper shelves and a workspace, and I can go back, and I'm glad I took pictures from the beginning, because the very first picture is this ugly sort of tablecloth and the Wicked Edge. It was like day one. I have arrived. I'm now going to learn how to sharpen. And then within 6 months, that room was packed. I had to clean it out, and I had to actually move stuff down and expand. And by the end of it, it was the whole room was full of machines, and I emptied it all out to paint the room. And I realized two things. One is I'm addicted to sharpening, and hi, my name's Cliff, and I'm a sharpening addict, and I'm powerless over it. And the second thing is I realized that this makes a lot of dust for a little tiny enclosed. So there was my first, I'm having so much fun, and there's so much more still to learn. and explore. I mean, I had experiments in my head lined up. I'd like almost like a goodie bag of things I haven't tried yet. Well, what about if I tried this? You know, what about if I try this, and that with that thing? And I haven't even built that thing yet. So there's just this laundry list of cool things to look forward to doing. And at the same time, I realized I probably should get out of the broom closet. My wife was starting to notice at this point. She didn't know, you know, she didn't know what was going on. And when I did it on the coffee table in the front room, she said, nah. And so I was in the closet, kept the door closed. And then pretty soon she started noticing that grit and that dust everywhere, just from the wicked edge.
Wow.
And so I moved out to the carport, and I took a photo of day one out in the carport, and it looks very abandoned. You know, there's like one folding chair and a table and a shelf, and that's just the natural progression of it. And it continues, you know, there's that progression up to the point where we got the van and continue moving forward. So that's kind of the overarching scope of where it's led. And you guys have watched, if you've watched my videos, that's why I did the videos on YouTube, was really not because I thought I had all the answers, but it was sharing information as I found it, the same way there were so few resources that were out there when I started as well. Patron saint of knives was putting out a couple videos. JD, I forget his name. You know, there's a few guys that there was just limited. Most of it was whetstones too. There wasn't really a lot on commercial sharpening or machine sharpening at all. So I hope that's not too long of a answer.
No, dude, I'm struck at how many like parallels there are in our journey. Like 2015, same time frame. Like I got my first Edge Pro, and like I knew nothing about sharpening, and it opened up that rabbit hole. And then like my spot was the back corner of the basement, that dark, damp place, right? And like I grew out from there. And Rob Bigsby was my, you know, the Apostle P on YouTube. Like he was the dude.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from sharpening from him. And but that gets us to when did you turn it into a business?
Going with the coming from a small community, and that's just my personal background, is coming from a small community. Everybody knows your business, and there's nothing they like better to do than gossip. I think the other dynamic is, if you're in a large community, like a large city, you could do horrible things and then just go 2 blocks down the road. Nobody's going to really know or remember who you are, maybe. But living here for a long time and being a repairman, I knew there's only one chance to really get it right. And there was a guy here that was sharpening. Old man John, big guy with the beard. It's like your classic sharpener guys, a guy with a beard and suspenders. And I've always thought of myself as kind of like a squirrel, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm getting a little grayer-tailed now, but you know, I walked up to the guy, "Hi, I'm a sharpener. How you doing?" And he was like, "You know, beat it, kid. I'm busy." And he's grinding stuff with his beard, and no, I'm really pretty good, you know. And unfortunately for him, he blew me off. And I'm self-employed, and I'm a business owner, and I'm qualified and skilled. And that guy didn't give me the time of day. He didn't even talk to me. And I get it. You know, once you're a sharpener, like now I'm a sharpener at the farmer's market, people come up to you every day. I got a whetstone. Well, good. You know, it's like everyone wants to talk to you about their whetstones. Or one guy come up and he'll touch the edge and he'll go, "I only use whetstone. Belts ruin blades." Then you just walk away. Just, okay, thanks for sharing. But I really tried to connect with the guy. And so I knew he had the island. He literally had this entire island buttoned up. He had more work than he could do, and he was the guy. And I basically geared up to do battle. I made sure I had my techniques down, my equipment down, and I'd slowly I progressed through like a lot of us do, friends and family. First, I practiced until I was really confident. that I could do a quality, repeatable job. And there was that transition point, I guess, which I think we all hit at a certain point. Some of us, everything, and I didn't realize that this had been done before, Matt, is taking all that precision in the Wicked Edge or the Edge Pro or your guided systems, where you're getting these flawless polished edges and just perfect work. It takes an hour, 2 hours, and being able to get 95% of that result in 5% of that time. And there's a whole nother discussion about the French guy and his paper on apex heat damage, you know, at the 4 micron level, and how many Rockwell it decreases with the belt, and what speed that belt was going that they never mentioned, and how thick that blade was that they never mentioned, and a lot of other things. But to be able to take everything that I was applying in the Wicked Edge and bring it into the 1x30 platform, which I look back at it now and I kind of shake my head that I was even doing a video on a 1x30 that's become the go-to. This is why we don't use belts, because it's running at 3,450 RPMs. You know, I cooked a few tips with the stock Harbor Freight. But to be able to get repeatable results in a quick amount of time and really have it done, I made sure, I guess I'm trying to answer your question here without getting too lost, Matt, to get repeatable results, to be able to take and handle the situations. A broken tip, what do you do? Do you turn it into an elf shoe and curve it up, or do you bring the spine down? How do you handle these situations? Because you're going to see those every day. You know, bolster repair every day, bolster. How do you grind down that bolster? How do you fix that tip? How do you get rid of that chip? And being able to do that consistent, repeatable. And I came out at a full run ready to box this guy, you know, metaphorically speaking. I came out ready to stake my claim to this area. And he retired about 2 months before I got out. And honestly, there's so much work here that there's no need. It's trying to have, it's interesting how you can respond to these things. We're sharpeners, and it's one thing to be in your man cave and sharpening. When you get out in the real world, and the first thing somebody else does is they badmouth your work, it's an awkward situation. I will not deny that I found myself getting defensive myself, even to this day. You know, these are the everyday struggles that I'm finding they have. And I can still post all the pictures on Instagram of a restored mirror polished, whatever you want, perfectly flat mirror polished bevel. I do a quick belt progression and hit it on a buffer. And with a steady hand and a slow speed belt, you can go bam, 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 and get a mirror polished. You can actually remove the damage from the whetstones, which has been my experience. You know, the consistently, it's like anything, right? It's the operator. It's not the tool. There's guys with chainsaws that can do beautiful, you know, chainsaw carvings of fuzzy teddy bears, and they're amazing with how they can control the chainsaw. Well, a belt machine's the same way. You can control the speed and the pressure, and you can do anything. And I think for me, being able to hold still and be very close to the work and adjust that while the machine's moving allows me to keep nice control over what I'm doing. Of course, we check what we're doing. Some of the worst damage I've ever seen has been whetstone damage. And that's just been my experience. The chef that said, no, I'm good. And what he means is you're not good enough to sharpen my tools. That's what I hear when he says that. Same chef, man, I'm good. No, thanks. I'm good. I got a whetstone. I'm good. I finally said, look, man, I'm really good at this. You gonna give me a shot? And he brought it out, and the thing, looking down the blade, where's it? Looking down the blade, it went like this, and looking along the spine, it went like this. And he said, here, see if you can do anything with this. And I did what we do. I made it back. I made it back, and I handed it back to him. And I got a picture somewhere. The dude started getting a little choked up, you know, because he's looking at like what, basically in his mind, I just performed a miracle, because that blade, he'd had it for 20 years since culinary school, and it was just a relic, and it was more a memento, a sentimental value than anything, but it was hammered. I have to pull up the old videos, because there was actually a couple of them that same day, and they looked like moguls on a ski slope, and the edge itself was slooped down like a lot of them are. They don't hit right back at the back heel. Mm-hmm. And so it was slooped. It had like Brokeback Mountain going in the middle of it, and then it went down. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And to be able to just to run that thing and bring it down to a 0-degree taper, and then put a micro bevel on top, all the things I learned from the Wicked Edge and from learning the different things, and to take it to a convex 0 grind, remove all the damage, buff and polish it with the Scotch-Brite, and then just put that laser sharp little micro bevel back on the edge, right to a needlepoint tip. I always go with a needlepoint tip. He looked at it, and I saw him. He kind of had to do one of these things, you know, and it's cool. You don't think you're going to get into these kind of situations. I've had a couple really big time chefs that once I pulled their trust out, they actually have like in the bottom drawer, I said, this was my grandma's, you know, here, can you help me? Mm-hmm. So we get to do things besides just sharpen metal objects. We get to bring back memories, and it's huge, you know. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're touching on so many awesome things here. And like one of the things that has been the best experience for me is being a member of the community. And now, like I did a knife for a guy who a buck that he's giving to his son as his first knife, right? Like now I'm part of that story, and that it's not just sharpening knives, man. It's part of the story. I love it. And like yours is so good. Like it sounds like your business took hold because you had community around you. And Randy, who's on the call here, I feel like his business blossomed really quickly because he's already engaged in his community, and they're already up in his business, like you said, and it really helps out. So, and then the other thing, which I love that you brought up, like this old school sharpener, there's two things that I love about that. One is that it kind of fits the stereotype that I cast onto the old school community of sharpener, where like they don't give you the time of day, and like if you don't do it my way, you're doing it wrong. And but the other thing that I love about it is that here you are on an island, and you made the comment, like there's plenty of work on the island. And I haven't found, like no one's encountered like this organization yet and been like, and presented me anything where it's like, well, actually, yeah, your market's actually saturated and sharpening might not be a good choice for you. There's tons of opportunity.
Right. Too many sharpeners is not, and even in some of the, I've got some fellow sharpeners in Chicago, which is a huge area, and I guess there's a lot of sharpeners in Chicago. For example, I don't even think they run into each other. They're not fighting each other. They're not crossing paths. I'm not actively beating the streets trying to find new locations. I've got enough work, and I like to just let things grow organically.
Yeah, I was actually wondering if we could just hang on that for a minute. I was wondering, sure, like, did you have to do marketing and to get your business going? If so, is there something that stands out as particularly effective for you? And then kind of where you mentioned that that's not a big deal at the moment, but yeah, could we go back in time a little bit?
Yeah, I'm happy to share everything I can with you guys too. Having the solid skill set as a cornerstone was number one. And then letting the word of mouth slowly spread out through friends and family to my buddy's got a kid that's a chef doing restaurant work, doing the hunters, just slowly letting the word spread and making sure that it's the word of mouth that was spreading. I had the logo, I had the business name, And I had built those like you would build a big pair of shoes and then you grow into them. I had the logo at the beginning, and then I knew the direction I wanted to go, but I didn't realize it was actually going to get there. You know, careful what you wish for. So doing quality work and having quality skills, number one. The word of mouth will always come after that. And I guess I learned from my grandpa, who was just a self-made guy. And he said, if you do good work, they'll tell another person. If you do bad work, they'll tell 10. That was his analogy to me, was just do good. And of course, if you're in a small community, there's nothing they like more than saying he no good, you know. Even, and so to be able to do really good stuff, I'm trying to think how to explain it. The key point, it seems like it went in 2 steps, and it's kind of like the progression. I'll just sidetrack for a second. Like the very first machine, I learned my skills with a quality piece of equipment, arguably way too expensive piece of equipment. But the first sharpening machine I had was a $50 Harbor Freight. It paid for the next machine. The next machine paid for the next machine. I used to think, I couldn't spend $400 on a machine. Well, now I've got 2 of those $400 machines, because I got one for a backup, and they've all paid for themselves. Everything just keeps expanding out. So I did the work as a sharpener that expanded to the hunters. The hunters then sent me work to the kitchens. And then I got enough of a reputation and a solid footing that when the farmer's market opportunity came, I was ready. And the farmer's market was one of those quantum leaps where you jump. Like when I jumped to the van, that was a leap. When I jumped to the farmer's market, that's when I became part of the community, and I was ready to go. There was no floundering around. I had excitement because it was the first day, and I've got some some pictures where my kid was with me, but we had mapped out the tent, the logos, the flyers, you know, the marketing, the professional business aspect of it. I wasn't just a folding chair. Well, it was kind of a folding chair and a folding table, you know, pickup trucks behind me with a generator in it. And sure enough, I got rained on. The rain came in and just soaked my bench grinder, soaked the 1x30, soaked the inverter. I had a car battery sitting on the table. That it was really high quality. Yeah, it was a 1,000-watt inverter and one small little Walmart battery running a Harbor Freight 1x30. The work quality was fine, you know, if you know it was the variable speed on the 1x30. But I came home. The 2 things happened. One is immediately I felt a connection to the community, and maybe that was from growing up in a tourist community where you interact with a lot of people. You get this sort of public ability to communicate with people, which I enjoy it. But I've been a repairman a long time. I mean, I've repaired 10,000, 100,000 things. In the time I've been a sharpener, I've had more people tell me, I appreciate you and thank you for what you've done. And sincerely, I know it's almost, I don't want to call it a new kids sort of thing. This I appreciate you thing can be overblown. But when you can really sense it from people that you're doing the work for, they're saying, I'm really grateful for what you did. And it was this simple skill that started out as a hobby. And sometimes it is those sentimental things that are unreplaceable. The guy from Vietnam with a knife he's carried with him for the last 40 years. Yeah, I would love the opportunity to clean that up for you and still keep the history. That's where if you can talk to people and go, you know, what do you want done? Do you want it to look like it's brand new, or you just want it to look like it's not grungy? Shall we keep the character and just remove the grit, the grime? And that's usually what they want. They don't want it to look like it's buffed and polished and scotch-brighted until an old buck knife will really take a nice buff, and that the bolsters, you know, the buck knife brass bolsters on the knife. They'll pop, but you'll still see all the scratches from every time it's been put in somebody's pocket. And I call those low-hanging miracles, or that's just the easy stuff. You can spin around and do that and spin back around and hand it to them, and you just made their day. That's kind of the foundation of which I've built the whole thing on, and continue to do, is just trying to exceed the expectations. And especially when I see something like that, I get all excited because I know I'm going to only charge them $6 or $7 for that knife, but I know they're going to, the word of mouth that can go out, like ripples out from that. The opportunity to blow somebody away and really make their day. It's the best. It really is. You know, does that answer the question? I'm rambling too. I hope I'm doing okay for you guys.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yo, are you full time right now sharpening?
I am full time. With the lockdown last year, we split off. You know, when our business here is 80% tourist related, you know, restaurants and stuff like that. And when all the restaurants and everything closed, I shifted to more residential, which I think that's a natural shift that a lot of us probably saw. Some of the guys in the kitchens just weren't even in the kitchens, but definitely full time. The other thing that happened was, if I'm bouncing around a little bit, but from the farmer's market and the day I got rained, my wife said, we can't afford to do this. She was, I wouldn't say she was discouraging, but she wasn't supportive. Crazy guy doing his thing again. And I said, I really think I can make a business out of this. And I didn't have numbers. I didn't have examples of, like, if you look at a mobile locksmith, you can see there's lots of mobile locksmiths, and you can calculate how much they're making in income. There's, you know, I didn't know. I just knew that I've been a field service repairman my whole life, and here's a job where you're fixing things, and it seems like it could work out. And the first day I did that farmer's market, and I did, you know, 70, 80 knives. It was a $300 or $400 day. And the second week, the same thing happened, and there was more people coming the second week. And the third week, I got rained on, and I came home and I cried to my wife. I said, honey, I need a van. And she said, yes, you do. So she wasn't discouraged. She wasn't unsupportive of me. She was like, what's that one state? They call it the show me state. You know, she needed to see the proofs in the pudding. And once she actually saw that this is legit and I could pull it and do it, she's been 100% supportive of me. Not that she ever was. She just didn't have the crazy vision I did that I could make this something that could work full time.
Thanks for sharing that, man. That's another parallel, and that's why I'm kind of vocal within the community about making sure that the people who are important in our lives are at least well informed of what our goals and ambitions are. And then I love your point about, like, once we can show like it can work, it is easier from that point to get their full support. But I really love, like, communicating it up front and early, and like, here's what I want to do and here's how I'm going to do it. And I think it can work, but I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy husband too, man.
Well, that's life. Laying out a roadmap, though, sure seems to help the people that aren't. I mean, you know, a lot of people, and myself included, worked 9 to 5 for many years, and it's hard to step out into the unknown. The beauty of doing I call it an incremental approach, just like that. The analogy with the sharpening equipment, the cheap Harbor Freight machine buys the variable speed buys the 2-inch machine. Everything is incremental, and you end up not having to do a huge out-of-pocket expense. It just kind of feeds itself, self-supporting. And that's the approach I encourage as a business owner, if I had one business piece of advice, it's let it show you where to go. We added at the table at our market, I put out, so I said, man, you really should sell some knives. Yeah, and then I got inventory and I'm busy sharpening, but then I got to deal with customers wanting to see the things, and it's a hassle. But enough people, the clues get given to us at every single step of the way. People will come up and tell you exactly what you should do, and it's not always the best. You got to filter it. But I had enough people say it would be really neat if you were selling knives, especially when you have commercial locations, kitchens and chefs, and they're saying they want you to buy knives, and you can figure that they're going to go somewhere else, maybe to the other sharpener that has knives for sale or something like that. I started offering people products for sale on my table. I matched the same price. You can get it for Amazon, only you can put it and feel it and put it in your hand. I'm not gouging. I'm not marking up, and it's here. I'm trying to put the item in your hand so you can feel it and get a personal experience and find something that's going to work for you. And it's the same price as if you clicked and bought it off of Amazon. And we're fortunate enough that we have some people supporting us in our back end of our industry to where that we can become a reseller and be a value added to the consumer. Mm-hmm. Fancy words for being a guy that people go to buy things. Right. I just happened to have picked up a whole bunch of kikuichi Japanese sushi knives and Japanese kitchen knives right before Christmas, and everybody came to the farmer's market. And everybody needed a present to give John or Susie or whoever. They cleaned me out, and I had 10 knives on the table, and they bought all 10, and then I reached down in, I started putting up the Victorinox and everything else I had. The people were buying whatever was available. And I'm currently working on the next expansion for that. I've got a whole wall that will have all different types of knives on it. Magnetic, like basically a display wall with magnetic strips. How did I go from selling one knife to a whole wall with 50 or 60 knives, which I'm pretty excited to, have this kick butt wall of knives up on the thing. They paid for themselves. Mm-hmm. The first batch paid for the second batch, and so on. I'm kind of beating it in the ground, but it's just really exciting when you have a way to do things that you don't have to risk $10,000 or lay it all out on the line. You just kind of let it grow and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I've mentioned to everybody before, like my whole shop is built off the back of the Edge Pro, and it's the same thing. So I appreciate you harping on it, because I love that model as well. We don't get ourselves in trouble with borrowing money, and it's possible. Right. And your case study is another example of how possible it is. And I also love how you mentioned listen to your customers, and I love starting in residential cutlery because of a bunch of reasons. But what we can do is listen to our customers, and they will tell us where we grow into. And that's how I got into chainsaws and hatchets and stuff. That's what they wanted. Smart.
Every one of us is going to have a different market segment. It's going to be slightly different, and probably every one of us will have people try to push you into things you don't want to do, like chainsaws. For me, I've drawn the line. My personal line in the sand has been power tools, chainsaws, hedge clippers, things that go like this. If it's a hand tool, or a machete, that's what I'll do. But anything other than that, that's where I stop. And some guys do it all. Some guys do drill bits and lathe bits and everything else. But picking the things you want to do or what you're comfortable doing, will make sure that you're always going to have happy customers, and we don't have to do everything. Some guys do everything. They'll do from, I do dog groomers. I do, some different things. I've expanded out. I keep adding them. But I've also reached the point where I don't want to add anything more. There's a local there's another sharpener actually that I get along with. We talk on a regular basis, and it's probably because we're not going head to head. He's got a Foley system, and he's doing planer blades and big industrial commercial stuff. And he said, do you want to buy it? Do you want to buy it out? I don't got, you can't do every, you got to pick it. I could, I've seen a couple guys in the different forums that do really good with industrial sharpening, I think is what we'd call it. But it's a whole nother animal. So we got residential, you got grooming, you got hairstylists, lawn and garden, which I kind of clump together. I go lawn and garden and residential. And that's really, to me, I mean, since we're talking, frankly about it, that's the lowest hassle, the most grateful, happy customers, the greatest satisfaction. Like we were talking about, that emotional feedback from people, giving people memories back, and a great rate of return too. To put it bluntly, it's profitable. You get into these hairstylists with $30 to take apart a thing and mirror polish and convex bevel it, and it's got to be perfect, and you put it back together, and then they go, I don't know. Like, damn it, I just want to, let's go. Let's keep it moving here. And groomers are great. Dog groomers are great. They also get a really bad rap. They get kicked around a lot on as far as their equipment goes. Guys have got a twice as sharp, and I know you can use the twice as sharp if it's a valid tool, if people use it properly. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the wolf demonstration videos that have popped up in the last year or two. What's your feelings with the twice as sharp and stuff like that?
I think it's an adequate tool. Are you using the Hero 2?
I have for flat hone, I use a Hero 2, and I have a twin head Kotoku. It's a flathead, flat hone. For grooming shears, especially the curved ones, I will use a belt. And I avoid the baby bench grinder pretty much at all costs. Not to say I don't think it can do good work. I've just seen a lot of grindy stuff with that tool. When they hand me their scissors and they're halfway chewed down, and that thing's, they spin fast. I love the form factor, and I love the concept of it with the precision arm and everything. I just wish it had some speed control on it. Or it ran about half that speed. But it's the same thing. You can use whatever you got to do the job. But the groomers are also, then you got to look at doing clipper blades, and then you got to get a special machine for clipper blades. And some people I think like clipper blades. Do you guys talk about any of this stuff at all in your daily stuff?
Yeah, we got some people serving the hair industry, some people serving the pet grooming industry. So yes, it does come up.
Okay. Well, and the hair doesn't seem to be as much of a problem. The grooming, the clipper blades are their own thing. And maybe it's coming from a repair background where I've been taking things apart and putting them together for 30 years, taking apart clipper blades and putting them back together for $6, $7, $8, $10 each is just a drag for me. And I do it because I'm the local source for it. And so I've got a pretty good system down. I got a couple corners I can cut. Brake cleaner in a green can works really good for cleaning them off. The guys, you go through the rinse, and then the dry, and then the air pressure, and the thing, just blast it with a can of green brake cleaner and wipe it off. And there's some ways you can cut some corners, but you still have to take them all apart, put them all together, adjust them, make sure they're all working right, test every little one of them. And and the time it takes you to do one clipper blade, even if you're really fast, how many knives could you do? Mm-hmm. I don't mean just half halfway blindside, just, but you could actually just go one knife, boom, two knives, boom. And you could, how many knives could you do in 10 minutes?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
I'm
can
with you
put-
on that, man. I'm not, I'm set up for clipper blades, but it's definitely not something I push. And my return and actually my joy is I get more joy out of doing kitchen knives, really. Carry knives too, to some extent, but I'm totally picking up what you're putting down. I would love to I'd love to talk about your van, but before we
Yeah.
go there, I want to shoot over to Jason and check in with the chat and see if there's anything we can address before we do that.
No, Cliff, real quick. Doug asked about, are you getting customers from your videos, or is it more kind of business to business feedback
So-
from your videos?
I appreciate it. I actually got the chat up down the corner, but I'm
Okay.
trying to, I can't think and look and talk and chew bubble gum at the same time. I appreciate all the comments too. So Matt, Jason, what's the comment?
Just
Question?
getting, are you getting customers from videos, or is it more sharpeners?
So the YouTube videos originally were a way to document the fact that the modified 1x30 with variable speed, that's what I was doing. And I was showing, because I was showing some things I wasn't seeing other people show, edge leading with an angle guide, and then actually just being able to show what's happening underneath the scope. I'm really big on, we can talk about what it feels like and what you think's going on, but when you actually see it under a microscope, it's pretty clear.
Mhm.
That's what we got going on. And I never expected in my wildest dreams, I did not set out to do a YouTube channel. I was just putting videos up. And at some point it became a thing where I realized I'm kind of making videos.
Cool.
And as it is right now, I can't count. I don't want to think about what the numbers are. Not that I don't want to think about it. I mean, I can't. I get on a daily basis right now several phone calls, several emails, several text messages, several Facebook messages, several business messages, and multiple YouTube comments a day. And so you really end up getting into this thing where you have, we've talked about it,
Mhm.
The communication channels. This is something to consider is, as you build a business, how do you want customers to be able to access you? How many ways do you want people to be able to access you? Because the more channels you have for people to come into you, the more hassle it is. And you got to have ways for people to reach you, but I wish I didn't have so many. I really do. Earlier this last year, and part of the progressive growth thing, the other aspect of the business, Matt, and if you'll indulge me, I will mention it, is the YouTube channel. People go to the channel, and this is just the reality of what my business model is right now. So I guess I'm not, it's not a trade secret or anything. People are going to my YouTube channel. They're seeing me demonstrate things. And then the questions I get asked either from a phone call, a message, or a YouTube comment is, how do you do that? Where can I get this stuff? And can you show me how to do that? And so we started, as part of the process as I got bigger, as I became able to access larger quantities of abrasive belts. And where I used to go to the same sources, a couple of my first two videos were a belt review in 2016 when I had my first 1,000 belts, and another belt review I did in 2018 where I went through every belt that I purchased. And I've been there. I bought them all. I bought every damn belt that you can buy. I've done it. And now I've got my own source for belts, and we're offering belts to other people. So and not just a hustle kind of thing. They're the best belts I've ever found, and I've got the best price I've ever found. So once again, it's that solid business model background that we're trying to do, is try to do the best work we can at the best value and all of that. There's an underlying theme of integrity with the thing, and trying to offer. It'll take care of itself if we just do the best work we can.
Mhm.
Dude, can we, I know this was one that a bunch of us wanted to get to, and since you took us there with the belts, could you tell us a little bit about what are the features of the belts that you sell that like attracted you to them, and like what should
Sure.
we be looking for? A lot of us are running 1x30, some of us 1x18. Like
Yep.
there's a lot of things like what the abrasive is, what the backing is. Can we do a little bit of talking around that?
Real quick, absolutely. And I did just like everybody else, I think, is I had the cheapest damn belts I could find. Yeah, I had the cheapest machine, the cheapest belts, aluminum oxide, silicon carbide. I didn't know the difference. It didn't take me long to realize that silicon carbides, you touch them to a piece of metal and the abrasive is gone. Even the cheapest aluminum oxide belt lasted longer than a silicon carbide. So I got rid of silicon carbides early on. I was still trying to be a frugal bugle and try to save as much money as possible. So I did not want to invest in higher quality belts. And so I was always about the aluminum oxides. I was getting them off Amazon and True Grit and Super Grit. And at some point I got a Norton Blaze belt, but the type of sharpening that we're doing, the Norton Blaze 50, 80, 100 grit, that orange belt, they glaze over and they turn into like lumpy speed bumps rather than abrasive particles. That was my experience. And it was based on the pressure and the speed that I'm pushing. Those belts need to be fractured open. They need to have higher speed and higher pressure to keep a fresh. And I didn't realize that. And that's been, so my first Norton Blaze, they cut great. They lasted longer than a cheap aluminum oxide, but the Norton Blaze rounded over and glazed over. Then I discovered ceramic, zirconia, and they cut better. I would say up to last year, the best belts I'd found was a ceramic belt. And that's the ones that we were offering. That's the ones I was using. And that's the ones that I had found was the best. So that's the ones that I was selling. At some point, my manufacturing source said, you need to try the Cubitrons. And it's a 3M product. And I hadn't heard of it. And once I put a Cubitron belt on, I'm sold, man. I'm a fan for life. Cubitrons are like from another planet. They're that good. And I can only speak, you guys know the type of sharpening I do with the angle guide. And if I could do 10 blades, 10 reprofiles on an aluminum oxide belt, I might get 15 or 20 out of a ceramic belt. Does that seem fair? Fair numbers.
Yep.
I can run 40 to 50 blades when I'm at the farmer's market and not have to change the belt. At a certain point, I will look up and I will feel it, and it's still got some bite to it, the belt itself, and I will throw it away because I've got a stack of them, but I could have kept going.
I'll check them out. What's the price point between the ceramic and the Cubitron?
Not enough to make it worth being able to do twice as much. I honestly don't know my own costs right off the bat. I'd have to look on my website.
But it's not like 10x or something, right? Like it's
no. I think the ceramic belts are at 3. Sorry.
Just saying, it's a relatively the same order of magnitude.
385 for a ceramic belt, 445 for a Cubitron, and it does twice as many.
Yeah.
And then so that's been the big groundbreaker for me is Cubitron. I'm on team Cubitron all the way. And then Trizac belts really are just that progression. So you do your stock removal, your damage removal, your reprofiling with a Cubitron, and then you just go straight to and I use a P120 Cubitron. I do have some P80s and P50s coming in that are going to work for lawnmower blades and some other heavy duty machetes. I use a P80 for a machete, just because you get into some of that bigger stuff and you don't want to sit there as long. But Trizacs are also the other one that they just last forever. If you guys have used, I imagine everyone's had some experience with some Trizac belts.
Maybe not everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's a structured abrasive, and they don't remove as much material, but the surface finish is uniform, and they last and last and last.
And that's another 3M product.
That's another 3M product. That's right.
And when you were doing ceramic, were you doing a 120 grit ceramic belt as well for that?
I was. So,
Okay.
so it was literally an apples to apples comparison. I got a P120 VSM ceramic versus a P120 Cubitron, and I still offer them. I still have them. I actually ran out of Cubitrons a month or so ago, and I had to go pull a ceramic off the wall. And I went, wow, I remember when I thought these things were hot. And I'm serious, you guys. I'm tempted. I mean, just shop talk. I'm tempted to pull them off my store because why? I mean, I guess I'm offering them as a value solution, but I don't believe in them, and I'll be straight up about it. It's just not the product. Why would you use this when this does, 40% more for $1 more? I don't know.
All right, so here's the analogy to back you up, right? Like your customers are coming to you and they're buying knives at you from the market because the knife market is so complex and hard to understand. When you ask Google, like, what knife should I buy? Like, I don't know. So like, what's Cliff recommend, right? Like, and if you're a dude who's dedicated to quality, like now I don't have to do any research because I'm buying from Cliff. And like, I think you could use that same logic to justify, I am Cliff, I'm selling the best belts that I can find. And like, right. And now there's no confusion, right? Because I look at your site and like, honestly, I don't know. Before this conversation, the Cubitrons or the ceramics, I didn't know.
That's right. So eliminate the possibility for somebody to be disappointed. And so I'm trying to, these are the decisions that we get to make, I get to make too, is that, I mean, after this phone call, after the Zoom call, I might pull the ceramics off because it just muddies the water. I am trying to offer, that's where we try things, and when they don't work out, we just go, well, that's not going to work. I'm trying to offer an economy solution, or something better than an aluminum oxide. I could bring in aluminum oxide belts for $1 each. That's not what we're doing here. We're trying to get good products that are going to let us do a good job and all that stuff. But having an economy ceramic belt to try and offer some people an economy option, it's still not a quality. It's still not as good as the quality. We got to bite the bullet and pay that extra $1, and then you get 30 or 40% more productivity out of a single belt. Right. I even throw one in as a bonus sometimes into the orders that come in, just as like a surprise. People go, well, where'd this come from? I didn't order it. So it's a bonus. Check it out. First one's free, baby.
Nice.
Jason, is there anything coming in from the chat to add on to the belt conversation?
No, well, there's a bunch. And then Cliff, I know you're a big proponent of variable speed. So can you touch on that quick? And then to piggyback off of that also real quick is your pricing structure. So variable speed, and then coming into how much you charge.
Okay. And this is something that's solidified recently, more in my own mind than anything. I've always been a proponent of variable speed. I would honestly say, in order of importance, slower speed is more important than variable speed. Getting into that Goldilocks zone is 1,700 to 2,000 RPMs, even 2,200. You guys know what I mean. It's that speed zone versus 3,450. That I could do most of the work. The machines I have are variable machines. I'm not adjusting the knobs all the time on them. I got I run it right at about 2,000. And so slower speed is more important than variable speed. On the big machine, the 2-inch wide belt machine that I do some reprofiling, resurfacing, I have variable speed on that, and I use it because I have it. So if I got something really delicate, I'll put the Scotch-Brite belt on there. I will kick it down to 900 RPMs, and I will just lightly touch it. If I really got a rusty machete, I'll kick that thing up to damn near 3,000 and let the dust cloud fly. that's nice to be able to have that speed control to hit the appropriate speed when you need it, and for heat control, and for, I mean, sometimes I don't, most of the times I can run my variable speed 2-inch machine also at about that sweet spot, right in that 2000, 2200 RPM range. But if I got some serious damage and it's like a chip out of a machete the size of your thumbnail, I'll kick it up and get some sparks flying. You can always come back and cool it down and lower it down, and even do a couple edge leading passes, not government approved or sanctioned, on another machine to get rid of the burr and to get the, you can do some things like that. But slower speed, then variable speed, and then it's actually come more into my mind as I get into this position where I'm having a public discussion with your group right now, and it's made me think more about my own position on things. I think the reverse function is probably the most dangerous feature you can add to a machine. It's the only time I've almost ever gotten hurt. And maybe this is an exaggeration, but imagine your buffer, your stropping wheel on your buffer. Imagine if that thing could go this way or that way. And every time you walk up to it, you don't know if you flicked the switch this way or that way when you turned it off last time. And it's happened to me. It's happened to me with my little 1x30 machine where I was doing some scissors and I was convexing and I had the belt going up and away because it's really nice to just let it go up and away, and I was buffing it and I turned it off. And then the next time I came over and I tried to do something, and I just about put, like, give you goosebumps, man. I just about put the knife right into the leather belt, and it was going the wrong way because the muscle memory isn't there. So I've actually developed, I've almost gotten hurt enough times with the switch going back and forth that as I'm going to put something onto it, I touch it. So if you don't install forward reverse switches on your machines, you never have to worry about it. You set it, and even I'm screwing up because I've got all my belts go down in the truck except for the last stropping belt goes up, and that's so I can keep the blade face up all the way. So I go 1, 2, 3. But then I go to my home shop and I go 1, 2, and then the third step is a stropping step, but that machine doesn't have a reverse motor. So I have to flip the blade upside down. Every time that you have a variable that isn't consistent is an opportunity to jam something in. That's really the only way we're going to get hurt. Sorry, I've been thinking about that a lot. The reverse do you need reverse on a machine? Or is it better just to have it be always the same way and you always know every time you walk up to your Veal sander, it's always going the same direction, man.
I like to think that I have the presence of mind, like when I'm sharpening, I'm always there. But yeah, dude, I'm human, right? The mind wanders, and yeah.
You do 10,000 blades over a couple years, and it's literally a matter of time. I'm trying to remove that 1 in 1,000 chance. Mm-hmm. Speaking on that, I did actually jab a knife into a belt going edge leading once, and people ask me about that. It's another common question about the angle guides and sharpening edge leading. And what happened was, if that's the platen and that's the angle guide, and the belt was coming down, as I jammed the knife into it, the blade brought the knife down and it hit the angle guide and it separated the two. And that's what happens. So as I stuck the knife into the leather belt, it immediately started moving it down. Mm-hmm. And within a fraction, that millisecond, it separated the two because the angle guide was between the belt and the knife. And so it immediately lost all its momentum. It didn't throw it and kick it. It just bumped it. And it actually didn't even cut the belt. It took a small shaving out of the belt. And I stuck it in there pretty good.
Wow.
And any other edge leading method that you're using, like if you took a recurve or a karambit and you went edge leading into a belt and you didn't have some way that's going to separate those two, the belt's either going to pop, rip, and throw the blade. Mm-hmm. over the course of 5 years sharpening and however many thousands of knives I've done, I think I've broken under a handful of belts. And they've always been when I've caught the edge, and usually I say it was a karambit. You know, it was some sort of recurve, and I came over and I hit the edge of the belt, and it just popped the belt. So as long as you keep that in mind, edge leading is really a safe way to go, especially with an angle guide.
Perfect. And then
Not
last question was pricing. How did you
Pricing.
come up with your pricing?
I took a survey kind of across the board. There's a sharpener's report.
Oh yeah.
Is a resource that's out there, and they do a survey of all the sharpeners and what they're charging, and then you can get a kind of a field comparison, and you can go to anybody's that's got a web. I've got a website up. You can go look at my pricing. People will, basically match and comparison each other. You find that there's not too much lowballing, although there is some areas of the country that seem to be really undervaluing or underpricing their own service. And that can be a slippery slope, right? If I'm at $4 and then he goes, well, I'm going to go at $3.50, and then their guy goes at $3. But $1 an inch seems to be a popular way to do it. I try not to be tedious about things. Commercial accounts, it's $6 a knife, any size, and I find it all balances out. Most of them are going to be a medium-sized knife. If I got a few smalls in there, great, because that actually, I just count them all up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times 6, $60. And I'm not counting the individual inches per knife. That time I could be sharpening. I could have made another $10 when sharpening another knife in the time it was taken to count them. And the same with at the farmer's market. I go small, medium, and large, 6, 8, and 10. And the price is set $1 higher than what I intend to charge them. And the reason being is then if it is a problem and they say, well, you said it was only going to be $8. I actually charge for an $8 knife. I will typically charge $7. And if I need to, if it's really screwed up and somebody's trying to take advantage of my situation and have me do a whole bunch of work, like here's one I found underneath the front steps. And it's, I said, well, that's an $8 knife. Right.
Yep.
But normally I having the price set at 8 and they think it's 8. And then if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knives, 5 times 7 is 35. Then they're thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought it was $8. I said, well, it's dealer's choice. I can charge you less if I want. I never have had anybody complain about charging them less.
Right.
So that's part of that under advertise, over deliver concept. If that makes sense.
Right.
And it also makes it easy for me. I can look, I see you got 4 smalls, they're $6 each. 6 times 4 is 24, call it 20. 5 times 7 is 35, call it 30, it's $50. And I know other sharpeners that wouldn't agree with that. I'm being just straight up honest with how I'm operating it right now. I know some guys that they add fix a tip, it's $2. Fix a bolster, it's $2. And you could probably squeeze another 15 to 20% of profitability out of it.
If I had the best intentions to keep us to an hour, and I let it go over, but I really want to thank you, man. Thank you for making this time to be here with us. And before in the email exchange going on, it was already tossed out the possibility of maybe connecting again in the future, and yep. I'm interested, so and okay. I trust everyone else is too. So
if we get a chance next time, I would be open more for group questions too. The chat on the side is almost hard to follow it and connect with us, but if we wanted to take turns, like if Jim had a question or if any of you guys have any questions for next time.
Dude, that's how the monthly meetings go, and I'll warn you, man. Like we're talking hours, right? Like it's awesome. Like it's so diverse. It's an awesome conversation, but we'd have to be honest with ourselves to dedicate a little more time to that. Which
sure.
Okay, yeah.
Remember, it's not 5 o'clock there yet, Matt.
What's that?
It's not even 5 at Cliff's time yet.
No, it's still daylight here, but you're at dark 30 over there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, did we get through kind of the punch list of things that you wanted to get questions about marketing and business structure and?
Dude, could you, if the answer is no, like there's more, right? But that justifies another conversation. One thing that has been a discussion topic lately has been like how you run your van, specifically around like how you power your tools in your van. If you
Right.
had another 2 minutes, would you be able to clue us in on that?
Sure, and I'll try and be really short about it. When I built the van, I had one chance to do it, and I wanted to make sure, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. I either got lucky, or those hippie kids on YouTube that have hashtag van life, they actually know what they're doing, because I just got a really simple isolator, is what it's called. And it's a diode based. There's two different types. There's a cheaper switch version, or the marine grade isolator switch. And I got the marine grade isolator. It's diode based, and it's got a third input that goes to your vehicle. When your vehicle's running, it allows the connection from the vehicle charging circuit to go back to I'm running 2 golf cart batteries in, oh God, electronics degree, and I got to think about it, in series. So the 6 volts and the 6 volts adds up to 12. They each have 100 milliamp hours. So I have a total of 200 milliamp hours in a 12 volt, and each battery was only $100. So my investment in the battery storage was $200. And I had I'm running a 3K. It's not a full pure sine wave inverter. It's just a 3K. I'm not running computers or anything really high delicate electronics. And I got that off of Amazon for a couple $100. I went to a solar heating specialty company to get the cable. The actual cable is about as thick as my thumb, and you can get it in bulk from those guys. And I got 30 feet. And so I went from the battery with the isolator, and then ran the cable back, and then I put fuses. I got the fuses from a subwoofer speaker, the car speaker company, the big fat fuses like they use on those big fat boom boom boxes. And so, voltage isolator, cable going back, fuse right to the batteries go right to the inverter, and it worked. And it's been working for 2 years. And the total cost of that investment was really $500.
And you run the van enough to keep the batteries at a big enough charge, or do you ever have to plug it in to charge the batteries at home?
So I never plug it in and run them at home, or like ship to shore. I never top off. I never trickle charge. Every Saturday, like tomorrow, the van will get a 5-hour workout, and I've got a little meter. And towards the end of the day, if I'm really doing a lot of 2x36 bench grinder sanding, it will start to get low. I've actually had it trip, and then because it's on an isolator circuit, your start battery is never drained. I can just start the vehicle up, and I immediately got full voltage. When I'm out in the field during the day, I usually 5 hours is the longest I ever do without having the vehicle started. I usually use my tiny little vehicle also as my air conditioning source. And so I start the vehicle, I let it idle. I got ice cold air blowing, I got the stereo going, and the batteries really aren't in effect at that point. I'm just running the inverter. But that simple of a system has held for over 2 years. And 2 weeks ago, I stripped it down. I checked all the connections. I swapped the order of the batteries. I was told that's a good thing to do. And then I checked all my connections, and it's working. I mean, if you got bigger machines, you're going to need probably a higher amp usage. There was an issue with the Rikon 50-161 variable speed 1x30. It does not like inverters, and mine included. I actually had a mishap, and I had to put mine in the van, and it was at the slow speed. It did not like it. It seemed to be okay when I turned it up a little bit, but it was sputtering and stuttering. It got red hot. So it does not like, maybe it'd work better with a pure sine inverter, but I mean, some guys got generators and really complicated systems and trickle charging and ship to shore. And I just get in it and I drive it. And when I drive down the road, it charges the batteries. And then when I get somewhere, I'm usually idling. But tomorrow I'll be at the market for 5 hours, and I may start it up just once in a while just to, make sure it's. I listen to the radio too, so it drains the battery, the car battery. But I mean, it's not. I don't know. I'm always some guys are buy once, cry once, right? Buy $1,000 belt sander and cry once. I like quality. I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting thought, right? Do you buy an AMK belt sander for $800, $900, or do you buy a $150 machine that spins the same belt, the same speed, the same smoothness, and I could buy 4 of them? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the right time to buy quality is one thing, but overbuying and claiming buy once, cry once is almost its own sense of just be honest. You wanted it, right? You just wanted the nice thing. That's it. The system works really straightforward, and I can report after 2 years, it's still working great. And it's a really simple system.
I love it, dude. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You got it. Well, we got to do this again. This is a lot of fun. As isolated, as individualistic as sharpeners tend to be able to actually have a forum, a roundtable forum, and do these kind of things. This is like what the Wicked Edge Forum used to feel like, when everybody would be able to share what they were talking about and stuff. I appreciate you so much having me on too. This is a real honor to be able to, it's just, I'm just Cliff, the sharpener guy.
No, dude, I think our styles, I was attracted to your style just because I really love your approach, and you come from a place of giving and sharing, and that's why you started your channel, just because you had this information, you're learning this stuff and you just want to share it. And I appreciate that. And I'm just gonna tease the next conversation a little bit. There was some other stuff about 1x30s versus 1x42s, diamond paste versus Tormek compound, talking real numbers about revenue and how it splits between mobile, at home, market, your online shop, and then other features that you're using within the business to, you mentioned, you have all these different communication channels. Well, how are you tackling that, and how are you managing your customers? So there is tons more to get into, which is all fun stuff for us. So if we can make it work, we will, we'll be in touch.
Okay. All right. Anytime, you guys, I appreciate it. And if you guys need anything, if I can help in any way, if I may say so, Matt, please, you guys just feel free to reach out to me. If I can support you guys in your sharpening endeavors in any way, join the club, man. I mean, don't be shy. I got little old grandpas and retired guys from Texas, and people call me all day and message me all the time. And who would have thought that a closet hobby would turn into this level of engagement and community, and being able to do everything we do and enjoy it? It's a hell of a thing. I mean, jokingly, the background, my shirt, my hat, these are there it is. The business cards, the stickers, it's just, I didn't have all these a couple years ago, and now it's just this is part of the branding deal. This is part of the believing in yourself. If I can leave with that thought, is just to see where you want to be and believe that you can be that.
Yeah.
And as I sit here looking at myself in the camera with this thing happening, and people say things all the time like, oh geez, I've watched all your videos and I can't believe I'm talking to you. I've got some ribs cooking. I got the kid in the backyard, and I got some ribs cooking, and I eat metal dust just like you. It's just the same. We all get sparks in the eye. Yep. So anytime, Matt, we can even look forward to doing this on a monthly basis or something like that. I appreciate it. And it was really good to get to know some of your guild members a little better, and get connected with what you're going on too. There's a lot of people talking about what kind of efforts you're putting forward to help the community as well right now. It's raising the bar for all of us to, you know, well, I can't remember the saying. I'm having a caffeine moment, but the fact that we all help each other rise the water,
Rising tide floats all boats, man. Yeah,
that's the one. That's the one. You know, we're all getting better. We're all getting better. We don't have to be grinder gusses in the basement anymore. We can all learn and figure out better ways to do better stuff. And sorry, my mic fell down, but my wife is just amazed. She's like, you know, this is something that I'll be able to pass on, a legacy of this. I've got my kids are my shipping and receiving department. Of course, my boy's my audio visual. He's also he's helped me design the logos, you know, and honestly, I think one of the biggest parts of it is the kids being able to see.
Yeah. I
watched my grandpa be self-employed. He was just a painter, but he answered the phone. He did the jobs. He did the work. And for them to be able to see this example of how you can do this, people come to the house, they drop things off. I sharpen it, I give it back to them. People call, you know, the things we do to build a business and have them have it as an example of how they can provide and support themselves is also a very valuable thing too.
Priceless.
For sure.
yeah, that's a common theme within the guild as well. There's a lot of what we do early on is take some time to figure out exactly why we're trying to pursue this goal. And it's not uncommon for, after digging into that, to have the children of our lives as a primary motivator for why we're trying to build what we're building. So
yeah, as we get older, that a good friend of ours had a new baby today, and we were talking about how the family has been the biggest thing that's helped him to be a better man. He goes, I don't even want to think about who that guy I was before. You know, it's funny when my 9-year-old daughter picks up a knife and she goes, yeah, it's okay.
Love that.
She's like, that's okay. That's pretty sharp. Or she'll touch one. She'll go, Dad.
Yeah, it's time.
Hit it up. Right on, you guys. I appreciate
Yeah.
The chat is hard to follow. I appreciate everyone's comments in the chat too. Thanks, you guys. Ken, appreciate it. Nice to meet you. And
Awesome.
I'll unmute and I'll break Matt's rule. Thanks so much for your time, man. It's been awesome, and I'd love to do this again and have more chance to dig in and all the different stuff we think of.
And I'll do my best to give you, my experience, which is all I'm doing. I hope that's clear too. I don't think I'm the be all end all of answers. I can just share what I know for sure. Like, don't go edge leading into a wheel, don't. We can all agree on that. But yeah, that'd be a lot of fun, Matt. Thanks again, Matt, for getting this whole thing put together for us.
Totally.